This video demonstrates knitting and shaping the tiny cardigan sleeve. Be sure that you're following your written instructions we developed in class together and not the shaping cadence demonstrated in this video. They will not be the same. Begin by casting on with a waste yarn start, knitting the waste yarn across the desired number of needles at main tension. There's no need to work a tubular cast on as this edge is not permanent. It will be taken away later once the draw thread is removed. You may hear a bit of background noise. I recorded this video while I was doing laundry, so you're in for the complete ASMR sleeve knitting experience for the duration of the video. After you hang the comb and install the weights, which you've ensured are hung balanced in the comb, knit about 1 inch in waste yarn. Using draw thread, work 1 tubular or circular course, which is 2 passes of the carriage, by setting both carriages to slip in the opposite direction. It's a good idea to clip a clothespin to the end of the draw cord and to the tail end of the waste yarn to make sure that there's enough weight on that first needle to knit off cleanly. You can knit the draw thread or the ravel cord at main tension, but it is not necessary to knit the draw cord at 0 or a tight tension. This may prove to be problematic. Drop down one side of the bed, one position, and slip the ravel cord bobbin through the gap. Close the bed. Cancel both slip functions so that you're knitting plain on both beds. Thread up your main yarn and turn the tension dial on both carriages to 0. Set both carriages back to tubular or circular, so opposing part buttons are pressed, and knit 2 rows. After this, you'll go back to knitting plain and slowly grade the tension up all the way to main tension, 1 whole number after every row. I've also reset the row counter here because this is when I want to start counting for the rib welt of the sleeve. Continue knitting in 1 by 1 rib after the tension has been graded to main tension. In this particular example, 5 is my main tension, and my instructions tell me to knit to row 18. After knitting the rib welt or the rib cuff, switch over to single bed knitting by transferring all of the ribber bed needles to their opposing empty main bed needle. Once you've worked all of the intra-bed transfers, drop the ribber bed, remove the coupling arm or the ribber bed sinker plate, and replace it with the single bed sinker plate. Do not attempt to knit single bed using the ribber coupler. Everything will fall off. It won't be good. Once you put the single bed sinker plate in place and you've threaded the yarn and closed the gate, make sure that you check your notes to reset or increase, more than likely, the tension dial settings on the single bed machine. In my example, I knit the rib welt at 5 and single jersey knit at tension 7. After you've knit a few rows, add claw weights to the edges of the work, and you can remove the barrel weights from the cast on comb if you wish. A single bed work doesn't need that much weight. The next portion of the sleeve will knit from the top of the rib welt to the bicep line. The sleeve widens from the sleeve opening to bicep, so we'll work several increases on both the left and the right side of the work simultaneously. Again, the cadence of these increases will be different in this video than they will be for your written instructions. This video just demonstrates how to work those increases. When working increases, either single or double bed, that are fully fashioned, we make empty needles. If we leave these needles in work, they'll form an eyelet. To avoid the eyelet, we need to pick up a purl bump or the top of the stitch from the row below and hang it on the empty needle. When you reach the bicep line, after you've worked your increases, your instructions will ask you to bind off a series of stitches on the carriage side of the work. In this example, I'll bind off 5. I'm using the regular latch tool bind off, working the bind off around the gate pegs to prevent it from drawing up too tightly. And once I've finished working the bind off, I will hang the loop carried by the latch tool onto the new edge needle in work and pull that needle all the way to hold. Pulling this needle to hold prevents that stitch from jumping out of the hook when I peel the work off the gate pegs. It's a good idea to move your claw weight up to keep that flat portion that we just bound off out of the way. And after you knit across, make sure that that stitch knit off cleanly. You'll repeat this step on the opposite side, binding off another 5, just as you had on the opposing side. You must work this bind off across 2 separate rows because you need the working yarn which the carriage carries in order to complete this bind off. For the remainder of the sleeve, we'll be decreasing and shaping the sleeve cap. The decreases are all worked the same, and they're always worked simultaneously, so one on the left and one on the right. Decrease using the fully fashioned method, using the triple prong tool, moving the edge 3 stitches in by 1 stitch, and pushing the now emptied needle into non-working position. Once you've completed the sleeve cap shaping, bind off using the latch tool method and peel the work from the machine. When you go to knit the second sleeve, follow the same instructions. The sleeve is symmetric, front and back. Unlike woven or tailored pattern pieces, there is no difference in cap articulation from the front or the back. So it's both a left and a right sleeve simultaneously. So just knit this twice to make the other sleeve. Once you've taken the work off of the machine and removed the comb, you'll need to pull out the draw thread or the ravel cord. But because we've knit this draw thread in a tubular course, you've got to pick out the looped end on the side that's opposite the end that has the ravel cord or the draw thread tails. You'll also need to make sure that when you pull this loop out and start pulling one side of the loop at a time, that the first loop that you pull out is the free end, not attached to the bobbin. After this end comes out, pull from the bobbin end side to separate the waste yarn from the main yarn, and take a look at how clean and how nice the 1x1 start is when using this method. Right off the machine, because this is single jersey, all of the edges will curl, but you should be able to see some of the shaping that you've achieved by working your increases and decreases. Let both sleeves rest at least overnight before blocking.